folks. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us as always. My name is Paul Harrell. This is the Millstone Report. Thank you so much for watching. We can't do it without you every single day. We got a great show for you. We're going to talk about Dr. Bhattacharya. We're going to talk about the fact that, yes, I mean, it's obvious to our shame, just generally speaking as a country, we care more about the torture of beagles than we do unborn children. That doesn't mean that the torture of beagles is good, though. So we're going to talk about that. Bhattacharya, the director of the National Institutes for Health, ending beagle torture experiments. And that's where I was gonna start today, but you know the news is kind of fluid. And right before I came on the air, I saw two stories that I think I want to lead with today. And the first one is I said Democrat, is Senator Thom Tillis, might as well be a Democrat, has now come out against the nomination of Ed Martin to be the U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C. And all he is doing is, the reason is because he thinks Ed Martin is too lenient on J6ers and is essentially once again doubling down on a thoroughly debunked narrative about what J6 was and the political prisoners that had to endure during the Biden administration that were sentenced to prison. It's incredible. I was absolutely aghast at this clip. Before we go any further, I'm going to get right to it, but I want to remind everybody this portion of the program brought to you by Redvive Health and the great folks over at redvivehealth.org/Paul. We'll tell you more about the healing power of light a little later in this segment. But let's get to it, shall we? Let's get to this first clip that I have pulled right before I went on the air today. I saw this from William Wolf from the Center of Baptist Leadership. He says, "I'm your constituent, and this is outrageous. Ed Martin is an incredible pick for U.S. Attorney for D.C. Real Donald Trump deserves his appointees confirmed, and your opposition is indefensible. Remember, you do have a primary next year." Let's take a listen. Why is Thom Tillis, why is he rejecting the nomination of Ed Martin for D.C.? Listen.
He is, I don't believe he's being advanced to the markup. I met with Mr. Martin. He seems like a good man. Most of my concerns related to January 6th. And he built a compelling case on some of the 1512 prosecutions that were probably heat of the moment bad decisions. But where we probably have a difference is I think anybody that breached the perimeter should have been in prison for some period of time. Whether it's 30 days or 3 years is debatable, but I have no tolerance for anybody who entered the building on January the 6th, and that's probably where most of the friction was.
I see. So he disagreed with you on that?
Well, no, I have to say that Mr. Martin did a good job of explaining how there were people that probably got caught up in it, but they made the stupid decision to come through a building that had been breached, and that the police officers and others were saying stay away.
But here's the deal. I mean, maybe there were some officers saying stay away, but there were also officers removing barricades and welcoming people in. Thom Tillis defending the swamp, defending this narrative that J6 was an insurrection. That's what he's doing, whether he says it's an insurrection or not. J6 was entrapment at the least, false flag at the worst, and an attempt to squash America First populism and essentially bar Trump from ever running for office again. It's incredible. The links. It's incredible. Just the. I mean, you know, is he naive or is he just lying? Because the basis, all of the weaponization, a continuation of framing Donald Trump for treason, and then the J6 false flag was the basis for the weaponization of Donald Trump under the Biden administration. And Thom Tillis won't vote for Ed Martin because Ed Martin I'm sure doesn't believe the official narrative the way Thom Tillis wants the world to be. It's absolutely incredible that Republican Thom Tillis, I called him a Democrat earlier, but he might as well be, accepting this narrative. I saw where National File tweeted earlier that every Republican senator needs to come out and publicly back Ed Martin and call for a vote, demand a vote for his confirmation immediately. But it looks like Tom Tillis and Lindsey Graham, from what I can tell, are dragging their feet here. They don't want this. And I believe that if he's not confirmed within the next couple of days, this far leftist wacko Judge Boasberg, that's already run against Donald Trump several times, gets to appoint the U.S. attorney. Did I read that right? Is that really what's about to happen? Because these rhinos, these uniparties, these people who are supporting a total fabrication and lie about what happened on January 6th, refusing to admit the federal agent provocateurs that were in the crowd, or federal agents themselves, or confidential human informants. Really disgusting. Keep going. Let's listen to some more.
The difference wasn't that they should be charged, in my estimation. It's by how much. That's an argument I'm willing to have, but we have to be very, very clear that what happened on January the 6th was wrong. It wasn't. It was not prompted or created by other people to put those people in trouble.
It was not prompted or created by other people to put those people in trouble. The evidence on video completely debunks what he's saying, and it's thoroughly been debunked over the last 4 years. It was created. It absolutely was. There are even people, and now we can put our tinfoil hats on. Was it Tim Burchett? Was it Tim Burchett that was Congressman Burchett that was talking about Millie, or I don't know if it was Millie. Anyway, Burchett was talking about the possibility of even weapons being deployed to agitate the crowd. Not to mention, preemptively firing, crowd suppressant rounds and everything else into the crowd to whip people up into a frenzy before, according to some reports, that happened before things turned violent or things, turned chaotic. And yet he is literally taking the Democrat J6 insurrection. On this hill, I will die. On this hill, Tom Tillis is saying, I'm going to put my foot down because Ed Martin is going to be the D.C. attorney, and he doesn't think J6 happened the way I think it did.
Decision, and they disgraced the United States by absolutely destroying the Capitol, and I can't have any patience.
It sounds like your concerns were not abbreviated.
But let me be very clear, though. Mr. Martin did a good job of explaining the one area that I think he's probably right, that there were some people that were over-prosecuted. But there were some, 200 or 300 of them, that should have never gotten a pardon.
But they were given a pardon. Donald Trump ran on giving them pardons. They were given a pardon. Mainly because, generally speaking, within the MAGA base, people became to know that this was a setup, it was a false flag designed to squash populism, designed to keep Donald Trump from ever being able to run for office again, to set the stage for prosecutions, to set the stage for the weaponization of government. That's what it was about. That's what this whole operation was designed to do. We're going to make sure he can never run again. We're going to double down. We framed him for treason with the intel oligarchs. Now we're going to set a false flag, and we're going to squash populism in this country forever. And he's going right along with it.
And he agreed with that. But the disagreement there had more to do. If Mr. Martin were being put forth as a U.S. attorney for any district except the district where January 6th happened, the protest happened, I'd probably support him. But not in this district.
When you say he's not being advanced to the markup, was he operating under that understanding that he's not being advanced through to a markup?
Well, I think Mr. Martin, I'm sure they're looking through it. I mean, be clear, some of the deadline has to do with the length of time he can operate as acting, and the administration can work through that if they want to have more time and potentially work them through. But at this point, I've indicated to the White House I wouldn't support his nomination.
So Ed Martin right now is the interim U.S. attorney. They're saying that they don't want him to be, and his time is going to expire, and it's incredible, man. The lengths these people will go to support a lie and in totally false narratives. So Mark Lynch, who's actually we interviewed him a couple of weeks ago. He's challenging Lindsey Graham in the state of South Carolina. He says Ed Martin's confirmation is key to draining the swamp. Every Republican U.S. Senator needs to do the following: publicly call for a vote to confirm Ed Martin as U.S. Attorney for the D.C. swamp, and publicly announce that they are a yes on Ed as U.S. Attorney. So National File reporting, Tom Tillis and Lindsey Graham have left Ed Martin off of the agenda for the Senate Judiciary Committee's meeting this Thursday. Why it matters: Thursday is a key deadline for him to be confirmed by May 20th when Martin's interim position expires. So this is an example of Republicans in the Senate not giving Trump the picks he wants. They say no. And we'll see what happens. But it is just another example of, people in D.C., specifically Republicans, who are a part of the Uniparty, holding on to this narrative that J6 was some sort of insurrection. The Democrats say it was worse than 9/11, some of them. And it's absolutely insane. Even though over the last 4 years of the Biden administration, while while J6 political prisoners were rotting in D.C. and other places in this country, this narrative was looked at. This narrative was thoroughly debunked by people on the right. The video footage comes in, and you see people being given a guided tour through the Capitol. At the very beginning, we saw police removing barricades, welcoming people in. The thing was a setup. It was entrapment at the very least, and a false flag to squash populism. I think that much is crystal clear. Another story that broke right before we came on the air, again at noon Central, was Donald Trump is meeting with Mark Carney, the new Prime Minister from Canada. And to keep it a little bit light this afternoon, I will just tell you that this had me rolling. Donald Trump literally says in front of Carney, like to his face, "I still think Canada should be the 51st state." Listen.
President, you had said that Canada should become the 51st state. Were you joking?
No. Well, I still believe that, but it takes two to tango, right? But no, I do. I mean, I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things. There would be a lot of advantages, but it would be a massive tax cut. And it's also a beautiful, as a real estate developer, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said that's the way it was meant to be. But I do feel it's much better for Canada, but we're not going to be discussing that unless somebody wants to discuss it. I think that there are tremendous benefits to the Canadian citizens, tremendously lower taxes, free military, which honestly we give you essentially anyway because we're protecting Canada if you ever had a problem. But
look at his face.
It would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places that get along very well.
I think that just was so funny to me. That what a we're already giving it to you anyway. Yeah, so are some of these Western provinces, are they going to try to secede from Canada and join the United States? And what would Trump do? What's Trump going to do when that happens? Some of these more rural, just quite frankly, American, more American ideals than say in these liberal enclaves, these Canadian cities that basically rule the country. Anyway, just absolutely. It's so funny to me. It's like office level cringe, but in a good way. All right, so let's get to the story that we were going to talk about today, which is Jay Bhattacharya. This was him over the weekend announcing. So I'm a little behind on this, but I thought this was interesting, and it kind of flows with what we're talking about, saying that they're ending the experiments of beagles. These Francis Collins, Anthony Fauci, these monstrous experiments that they were running on dogs.
People try to find the worst possible spin for it. I'll give you a couple of examples. So, for instance, I put out a policy to make sure that we have when we have animals in research that we look at alternatives. It's very easy, for instance, to cure Alzheimer's in mice, but those things don't translate to humans. So we've put forward a policy to replace animals in research with other technological advances, AI and other tools that actually translate better to what human health. But then I'm getting, and we got rid of all the Beagle experiments on the NIH campus. But
so they got rid of all the Beagles. The Gateway Pundit, which I think the Gateway Pundit is where I first saw the story about the Beagles getting slowly eaten to death by flies. Jim Hoft writing, Trump's NIH shuts down final Beagle lab conducting painful experiments, ending Fauci-era cruelty and bureaucratic waste. National Institutes for Health, under Director Bhattacharya's new leadership, has shut down the last remaining in-house Beagle experimentation lab, effectively ending the federal government's most notorious dog testing program. NIH Dr. Bhattacharya confirmed the move during Fox and Friends. That's what we just saw there. I would just look at this photo. It's incredible. For 40 years, NIH induced sepsis and hemorrhagic fever in dogs. They sourced the Beagles, valued for being docile, from a contractor that paid the largest animal welfare fine in history. What kind of person? This is what kind of see the people there next to these dogs hooked up with muzzles, hooked up on ventilators. What kind of person can get up out of bed every day and do this? Seriously. Like, I'm doing it for mankind. I'm doing it for science. It's just absolutely sick. So, yeah, in August of 2021, the Gateway Pundit reporter Cassandra Fairbanks reported exclusively on Dr. Fauci's experiments with bagels in Tunisia. The White Coat Waste Project, a taxpayer watchdog group, has provided the Gateway Pundit with new examples of Dr. Anthony Fauci's facilitating cruel and unnecessary taxpayer-funded experimentation on dogs. Documents uncovered by the organization found that the National Institutes of Health division led by Dr. Fauci shipped part of a $375,800 grant to a lab in Tunisia to infest beagles with parasites. The grant money funded a study published in 2021 that detailed the horror inflicted upon the unlucky dogs. One of the tortures that the beagles were subjected to included locking their heads in mesh cages filled with infected sandflies so that the parasite-carrying insects could eat them alive. The beagles are often used for these tests because of their gentle nature, even toward those who harm them. There was a photo of the test, which is sure to haunt anyone with a conscience. That was the test. They even starved the flies. They starved the sandflies beforehand to ensure that they were going to be adequately hungry enough to eat the dogs alive while they were sedated. Absolutely disgusting that this was even going on, right? So PETA, in response to Bhattacharya ending the experiments on beagles, PETA applauds. This is another Gateway Pundit by Mike LeChance. PETA applauds NIH NIH end to experiments on beagles in official statement, but fails to mention Trump or the Trump administration even once. Well, of course, because they're leftists that I'm sure don't want to have to, reconcile their worldviews on other issues when it comes to what's actually going on here. It turns out you can just you can just do things. You can just end experimentation on puppies and beagles and everything else. You can just do that. So yeah. Oh, interestingly enough, okay, I know why I pulled this one. We've got Victor Neves points out that congressman that we played on the show yesterday, the the plane, that congressman, Shri Thanedar. Sounds like a final boss in some sci-fi novel. Thanedar is your final boss. Congressman Shri Thanedar, the man who's trying to impeach President Trump, has been revealed to have a dark history. Michigan Democrat Shri Thanedar made headlines this week by filing 7 articles of impeachment against President Trump, but instead of evaluating his national profile, the move has sparked renewed scrutiny of Thanedar's. It also sounds like it's like the name of a bad. It's like Xanadu. Thanedar's disturbing past, specifically his role in a horrifying animal abuse scandal involving 118 beagles and 55 long-tailed, is it macaws? You'll have to forgive me. I'm not a dog expert. Anyway, left to die in locked cages in abandoned buildings in the heat after his drug testing company went bankrupt. Back in 2010, Thanadar owned a New Jersey pharmaceutical testing lab called Anaclin Preclinical Services, a subsidiary of his larger firm Azo Pharma. When the business collapsed under his leadership, the facilities were abruptly abandoned with animals still trapped inside. So anyway, that's how that is connected. And then, of course, Rand Paul famously pointed out the study on cocaine. Rand Paul's been in the news, obviously, for opposing Trump's tariffs. I'm not a fan of Rand Paul's stance on tariffs right now. But anyway, he did remind us about the cocaine.
We found that they spent last year $2.3 million injecting beagles with cocaine. It seems that they were curious, their researchers were curious, despite the pain they inflicted on these dogs, they were curious to know if cocaine causes adverse effects. Guess what? Read the newspaper.
Yeah, so they were getting dogs high on cocaine. It's just sick stuff. And again, I think, like, how can we, like, how in the world do people even get up and do this on a daily basis? Like, how does that even happen? You know what I mean? And then there's this political story, and we're going to get, I think I've got it for a little later, but Josh Hawley reminding us, Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri reminding us about abortion pills. So we're going to talk about that too. So keep this in mind. You see the gut-wrenching videos. You see the gut-wrenching videos or the photos of the beagles being tortured, and everybody's outraged by it. And I hate to be the guy. I actually don't hate to be the guy, but, I'm just reminding everybody that we seem to regard, animals as a higher esteem than unborn children. Dr. Simone Gold, breaking, Trump just signed an executive order banning, so this happened yesterday, banning gain-of-function research. This was huge.
The first relates to gain-of-function research. Gain-of-function research is a type of biomedical research where pathogens are adulterated, viruses are adulterated to make them more potent or to change the way that they function. Many people believe that gain-of-function research was one of the key causes of the COVID pandemic that struck us in the last decade. What this executive order does, first of all, it provides powerful new tools to enforce the ban on federal funding for gain-of-function research abroad. It also strengthens other oversight mechanisms related to that issue and creates an overarching strategy to ensure that biomedical research in general is being conducted safely and in a way that ultimately protects human health more.
It's a big deal. It could have been that we wouldn't have had the problem we had.
A lot of people say that, sir.
If we had this done earlier.
So you see there in that photo, you've got Bhattacharya behind him and RFK Jr. So RFK Jr. Gave us a little update on what this really means from the Oval Office as Trump is signing this executive order.
This is an historic day, the end of gain-of-function research funding by the federal government and also controls by private corporations on gain-of-function studies. This was a kind of study that was engaged in by the United States military and intelligence agencies beginning in 1947. By 1969, the CIA said that they had reached nuclear equivalency, that they could kill the entire U.S. population for 29 cents a person. That year, President Nixon went to Fort Detrick and announced a unilateral end to this kind of research, what they called dual-use research, research that was for vaccination and also for military purposes. He then persuaded over 180 countries to sign the Bioweapons Charter in 1973. That basically ended gain-of-function research around the globe until 2002. Or 2001, after the anthrax attacks, we passed the Patriot Act, and the Patriot Act had a provision, a little-known provision in it, that said that although the Bioweapons Charter is still in effect, and the Geneva Convention is still in effect, U.S. federal officials who violate it cannot be prosecuted.
I didn't know that. The Patriot Act gave immunity to those who violate biological weapon charters and treaties. Truly sick. What a giant mistake the Patriot Act was. Of course, we all know that now, but back in the day, it was all about, fighting the terrorists, right?
And that relaunched a bioweapons arms race, and that was driven by gain-of-function research. In 2014, 3 of those bugs escaped from U.S. labs, and President Obama declared a moratorium on future use, and instead a lot of that research was moved offshore to the Wuhan lab.
So we can't do it here, but we'll terrorize the rest of the world with our bioweapons labs and experiments trying to make pathogens as deadly as they possibly can be. What do you call a government that does that to the rest of the world? Honest question. Who is the United States of America to the rest of the world with this kind of, it's bioterrorism is what it is. It's doing bioterrorism in other countries. How do you think those countries feel about it? It's great to blame China for the things that they're responsible for, but saying that this is China's fault because that's when we were funding the research going on at the lab in Wuhan, it just kind of seems like a red herring, doesn't it? Kind of seems like a distraction to get people on the different trail, get them off the trail that leads right back to Fort Detrick, maybe. It's pretty sick stuff. And Fauci and others were behind all of it. Now, he said the same thing to Laura Ingraham last night. So I'm not going to reiterate that. But War Clandestine over on X is somebody I've been following for a while. He was one of the first people that I know. I think he was the first person that I know that said that maybe, just maybe, one of the reasons Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine, and there was a lot of reasons, but one of them was that the U.S. had bioweapons labs doing the same research that they did in China in Ukraine. And he was banned from platforms for saying this. He had maps of them. And then he was vindicated when Marco Rubio and Victoria Nuland admitted this in a Senate hearing a couple of weeks later, I think, saying, yes, in fact, we do have bioweapons labs, and we're worried Vladimir Putin's going to get the hands on the pathogens. Totally vindicating Clandestine on X. It was back then it was Twitter, which is why it was banned. So he writes, and this is a fascinating claim. He says, I'm 99% sure that Trump addressing gain of function is part of the negotiations with Russia, peace with Russia. For years now, Russia has been trying to start a formal United Nations investigation into U.S. bioweapon production. Russia claims it's one of their main reasons for moving into Ukraine in 2022. Russia has been telling the world that they want justice for COVID. Putin wants Fauci's head, along with a great deal of others, to include Soros, Obama, Clinton, Biden, Bill Gates, and many more, that Russian military claims to be involved in U.S.-funded bioweapon development in Ukraine. Those names are not something I made up. All of this information was formally alleged at the United Nations by Russia multiple times since 2022. The chart pictured below is part of the formal allegation sent to the United Nations by Russia. Whether or not you believe Russia is a different conversation, but they actually accuse those people of bioweapon production. Putin will not withdraw his troops unless he has guarantees that U.S. bioweapon development in Ukraine and elsewhere will be stopped, investigated, and are no longer a threat to his people. There's simply no way this subject did not come up during negotiations. This has been one of Russia's main subjects at the United Nations for 3 years now. There's no way Trump and Putin did not discuss this. Trump's executive order on gain of function, he writes, tells me that negotiations with Russia went well, and in all likelihood, stopping and investigating gain of function is one of the stipulations Putin demanded in order to withdraw, and Trump was happy to cooperate. So that is a totally different twist in this that could be true. And then Clandestine talks about how he was banned for saying this. And then he says this. If we go back to last week, observe the timeline. Flashback to only 4 days ago. DNI Tulsi Gabbard told us she, alongside Bhattacharya and RFK Jr., were investigating gain of function and the global U.S.-funded biolab network, including Ukraine. Today, Trump, alongside Bhattacharya and RFK Jr., signs an executive order banning federal funding for gain of function research. So let's listen to that. This was on the Megyn Kelly show last week.
That we are working with Jay Bhattacharya, the new NIH Director, with, as well as Secretary Kennedy, is looking at the gain of function research that, in the case of the Wuhan lab, as well as many of these other biolabs around the world, was actually U.S. funded and leads to this dangerous kind of research that, in many examples, has resulted in either a pandemic or some other major health crisis.
Well, let me ask you specifically, because we already know that.
That would be great. I mean, that if that's true, I think I agree with Clandestine. I think it's likely that part of these peace negotiations isn't just about Ukraine and Russia. It's about Western influence. Obviously, NATO's that Western influence that provoked the war. Yes, provoked. But you use this conflict to address, like, we're going to settle the family business. We're gonna settle all family business with this negotiation, because it's Trump that is saying they want to financially normalize relationships with Russia. Also, Donald Trump teasing he's about to go to the Middle East. Trump is now teasing from the Oval Office right before we came on the air, teasing some big announcement that's going to be announced either Thursday or Friday, he said, or possibly Monday right before he leaves. People are wondering, is this going to be some sort of announcement of peace in the Middle East? I don't know. I have no idea, but we can hope and we can pray that the killing and the death would stop 100%. And in the meantime, so, I mean, if you pay attention to, let's pay attention to what RFK Jr. was saying in the Oval Office, what he said on Laura Ingraham. He's essentially accusing Fauci of just crimes against humanity. And then Trump announces he wants to rebuild Alcatraz. I guess what I'm saying is, yes, I have thought about this. Maybe, just maybe, Anthony Fauci will end up in Alcatraz. Maybe he will end up in Alcatraz. Of course, though, I mean, life in prison like in Alcatraz, it's really not justice if you consider the amount of people who have died because of this spike protein that was created in a lab. But anyway, on Alcatraz, Stephen Miller said this the other day.
Alcatraz was built at a time when this country was strong and it knew how to take care of villains and monsters. There are people in this country, as President Trump has said, who will do nothing with their lives but rape, maim, and murder. They cannot be rehabilitated. They cannot be saved. They cannot be coached in some better way of living. They are always going to hurt. They are always going to steal. They are always going to attack. And we need a place in this country where we can send people.
I think that does describe Fauci, by the way, because Fauci is still going out there and he's talking to the media about, I guess what I would just say is like, if you don't put somebody like Fauci in a position where he can never do something like he did again, he will do it again. People like Bill Gates, they'll do what they did again, in my opinion. So anyway, before we go any further, I want to tell you about Red Vive Health, redvivehealth.org/Paul. That's redvivehealth.org/Paul. So, these are machines that not only can fight inflammation like we've talked about, and they can heal wounds, they can tighten your skin, hyperpigmentation, anti-aging. They can also, obviously, if they do all those things, then they would also enhance athletic performance. So if you are somebody who is in the gym a lot, you do a lot of athletic sports, that sort of thing, this is something that can help boost your recovery time. It can, again, promote faster wound healing as well. According to research, the utilization of red and near-infrared light therapy has significant benefits, such as reducing muscle fatigue, improving muscle strength and endurance, also facilitating fat loss and muscle growth responses resulting from exercise, as well as, again, accelerating the recovery process. Again, you got two different wavelengths on these panels from RedVive, red light and near-infrared light. They're naturally emitted by the sun, but we don't get enough of them. We're cooped up in a studio like I am, or you're cooped up in an office standing at a computer screen that's, flooding your eyes with blue light. The red light that comes from the panels is absorbed by the skin, which leads to enhanced skin health and anti-aging. And then the near-infrared light penetrates deeper into the body, reaching your bones, muscles, tissues, and organs. And we're talking about your cells all over. So, your whole body's made of cells. So this stimulates the mitochondria of the cell, and it's incredible. And I want you to try it. And I want you to go to redvivehealth.org/Paul right now, redvivehealth.org/Paul, and experience the healing power of light today. Also, be sure to realize that you have 0% interest financing there. See at the top of the screen for those of you that want to look into that. We're going to take 60 seconds and be back here in just a moment after we hear from Mike Lindell.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
All right, so check out the great deals, MyPillow.com, and use that promo code PH. They've got big summer savings now, up to 80% off. MyPillow.com, promo code PH. It was great to interview Mike Lindell. We did it a few weeks ago. Yeah, you can check that interview out up at my Substack, by the way, if you want. All right, so Curable Premium Health. The rest of the program brought to you by the great CBD products you can get at curable.com. We'll tell you more about that here in just a minute. Okay, so we just spent the entire first half of the show talking about, well, we talked about the ban of gain of function, which is obviously great. We're very excited about that. But we started the show, the Beagle torture, how terrible that is. How could anybody get up and that's what they do for a living? Well, I had this story pop up. Josh Hawley from Missouri shared it, this Politico story. Trump will defend Biden's abortion pill rules in Texas case. The filing over the regulation of Millstone indicates an emerging pattern, an effort to preserve executive power. The Trump administration is defending federal regulations allowing abortion pills to be available online and by mail, the Justice Department released on Monday. Now, this is not inconsistent with what the Republicans did in the election. And, pro-lifers still voted for Trump, many of them in droves, or even abolitionists. But the anti-abortion movement in this country was certainly thrown under the bus by the Republican Party. There's no way to get around that. And it was... And it was stuff that we all had to work through during the election. We were trying to figure out, how is this, what's the, people were, I was certainly one of the I was a black pill bulimic on that issue for sure. Take the black pill, but then throw it up. But, you just kind of, what's the point? Like, do we, we want our guy to be, president of a baby murdering nation? Yet, yeah, we're the, the head of the baby murdering nation now. But this is something that, it's the way the administration is approaching things, and it needs to be called out as wrong. It's wrong. Abortion is wrong. Abortion pills are wrong. Ending life Ending human life is wrong. It's sacred, and it is a total affront to God and His rule. It says here, rather than defending the Food and Drug Administration's rules for the pills or the merits, the DOJ argued in a filing with Texas federal court that the 3 GOP-controlled states suing the agency lack standing and the case should be thrown out. So these states have sued the executive, they've sued the government because they believe that the DOJ allowing these abortion pills to be ordered online and delivered across state lines are violating state laws against such measures. This was obviously what the Biden administration did this in response to the Supreme Court's decision overturning Roe versus Wade. The Dobbs decision is what did that, and it sent abortion back to the states. And then, of course, we found out that many Republicans this whole time weren't actually against abortion. They were just for drawing arbitrary lines in the sand, deciding when life begins and when it does not begin. And we all found that out. Like a lot of these people that ran for office, they really weren't against abortion. They were just against the amount of abortions that the left was going to do. But the Biden administration, in response to the Dobbs decision, essentially decided to make every Walgreens and every CVS pharmacy, in every big, medium, small town in America, Planned Parenthood clinics where, women could walk in off the street, early Saturday morning or Sunday morning after a weekend of revelry and take their abortion pills to make sure that there will be no consequences, immediate consequences for their decisions. And this is a big deal, and it's a shame because, under these, according to estimates, abortions have actually increased. Abortions have actually gone up since Roe versus Wade has been sent back to the states, and that's mainly because of these drugs. And so we don't need to shy away from it. This is an abomination, needs to be stopped, and there's still a lot of work to do, especially as we watch the pro-life movement that's very well funded become the pro-choice movement, the new pro-choice movement, as they fight abolition bills in states all across the country. How did we get here? Pat Buchanan, the late Pat Buchanan, way back in 2011, had a prediction for what 2025 would be like. Obviously, Pat Buchanan didn't envision a populist like Donald Trump rising to the highest office in the land 2 times after he was framed for treason and shot. But what he said is prophetic in a way, and I want to listen to it. This is the late Pat Buchanan being interviewed by CNN. Is that Aaron Burnett, I think? And this is what he said.
I do believe this. We're going to have the American unipolar world where we're the single last superpower. That is definitely over. I think China is an emerging superpower by 2020. Economically and militarily, it'll be the dominant power in Asia. And I think an emerging superpower. Look, if they...
But we're not dead by 2025,
well, the United
right?
States
I was worried.
2025, what concerns me is what's happening here at home, that we seem to be disintegrating as one nation, under God, indivisible. All those things we had, it seems to me we're losing. We are very much at war with each other. Mm-hmm. And it's over ideology, politics, religion, philosophy, everything. And the terms we're using on each other, I'm on cable as you are. Mm-hmm. I mean, every day somebody's calling somebody else a racist. We didn't use those kinds of terms on each other's, even during the Civil Rights era.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. But your book has a chapter called The End of White America.
Right.
Which, it's a startling term, and I'm curious what you...
Wait a second. The End of White America. Again, this was 2011, not 2025. Well before the apparent modern-day fatigue of these racial, racial utopias or lack thereof have set in. The fatigue that you're seeing right now in the wake of Carmelo Anthony and this Shiloh person. I mean, this was a long time before that. We were still buying the lie that Obama was going to be this post-racial president. I mean, maybe by 2011 everybody knew that was a joke, but I had a friend reach out to me that I went to high school with. This is fascinating. I had a friend reach out to me, went to high school with. He was like, "Hey, are you following this Carmelo Anthony situation? Like, what do you think?" My response is like, well, grew up in the 90s in Arkansas. There was certainly, people were aware of race, but at least in my mind, naively, I believed it was post-racial. We all believed, I guess I can just speak for me. I believe that, we had evolved in our sensibilities. We knew about Martin Luther King Jr. We knew about the civil rights. We knew racism was generally wrong. We knew things, we knew we'd come a long way. And there were still racial divisions. There were still, shocker, homogenous people, they feel more comfortable among other people that look like them. That still happened, but there really wasn't a lot of racial tension when I grew up in the 90s. And now as a 40-year-old man, and you look at, I just feel like that it was all a lie. It was all a lie, and it was based on secular ideas. It wasn't grounded in anything biblical. It wasn't grounded in anything firm. It was all just, well, let's just put our heads in the sand and hope the world will be the way these educational liberals in D.C. want us to believe. It was just, you look back and it was all. Anyway, so I'm quite disillusioned at that. I mean, I'm thankful, honestly, because I think we have a truer representation of the human condition now than this. It was just all. It was so fake. It was all fake. But to hear, I think that's Erin Burnett. To hear her say, "You have a chapter in your book. You have a chapter in your book called "The End of White America." That's startling. That's a startling thing to say. Listen again.
Terms on each other's, even during the civil rights era.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true, but your book has a chapter called "The End of White America,"
right?
Which it's a startling term, and I'm curious what you mean, because isn't the end of white America, as we see the rise of Hispanics, a good thing? Proof that America is a melting pot, that anybody can succeed here, no matter the color of your skin or your religion or whatever.
Well, that's a little concerned when people say, Pat, the majority of people looking like you, that's coming to an end, Pat.
And that's a good thing, Pat. Pat Buchanan was right about so many things. Of course, did that just go over people's heads back in 2011? Yeah. It would have gone over mine. It would have gone over mine. There's still just a lot of nonsense accepted. This just liberalism. I mean, just 20th century liberalism nonsense. For somebody to say, yeah, that's kind of discouraging, people that look like me, and that's coming to an end. I don't want that to come to an end. But it was part of the deracination, right? The deracination of whites, where everybody else can have a race and acknowledge that that's a fact. But the only way you acknowledge the white race is if you acknowledge colonialism, if you acknowledge, slavery and the bad things that white people have done. Then you can talk about it.
So
anyway,
let me say this:
on.
what's wrong with this is the idea that when whites are a minority in this country in 2041 and Hispanics are 150 million. What is going to hold us together when we don't have a common religion, we don't have common beliefs about right and wrong and morality as we used to? We are at war over whether or not equality means equality of rights or equality of rewards.
The American dream, the freedom, the belief, what caused the Arab Spring, that's what holds us together.
Do people, freedom and the idea of socialist equality and freedom are in mortal conflict. I was in China before you were born with Richard Nixon in 1972. The most equal society you've ever seen. Everybody had a blue Mao jacket on, and they were the poorest people you've ever seen. Now, tyranny, much of the tyranny has been lifted of Maoism, and it's an unequal society in China.
So.
Millionaires and billionaires, as Barack Obama would say.
So it's fascinating. The question is, in 2025, what are we going to be? He says, well, in 2042, according at the, I don't know what the demographic projections say at this point in 2025, but in 2011, he's saying in 2042, whites are a minority, Hispanics are the majority. What will hold us together? What will hold us together when we don't have a common religion? A CNN anchor says, well, I mean, freedom. But based on what? Based on humanistic, secular paganism. Whatever freedom means. The Arab Spring, that was really funny. I forgot about the Arab Spring. Yeah, the Arab Spring, What started the Arab Spring? That's what will hold us together. In Egypt? It's so laughable now to think about what was put out there and what people just bought hook, line, and sinker, myself included. How did we get here, though? That's what I asked when we first watched this clip. How did we get here? Well, we also got here by people like David French. R.N. McIntyre writing, David French has become a meme for being so vile and so weak while lying to Christians for profit. This will be his legacy, shameful cowardice that will echo through the generations. Here's David French on MSNBC slamming MAGA Christians who voted for Donald Trump.
Barbarians are at the gate. You need a barbarian to fight back against you. And what I'm getting from you is you don't really believe that the barbarians aren't, the traditional barbarians. It's just, I don't like the left.
Oh, it's very anti-left. I mean, look.
So Donald Trump wouldn't be a barbarian in this scenario.
Well, and think about how contrary this is to the example of Jesus, because Jesus comes to ancient Israel when it's under Roman occupation, where the people of Israel are deeply oppressed, and he doesn't come and overthrow the government. He doesn't come and rule in the way that these Christian right people want to rule. He comes in and he loves other people, he serves other people, and he even forgives the people who are executing him as they're executing him. And yet you look at this Christian right, the MAGA Christian right, it is will to power, it is cruelty, it is dominance. Look how they applaud as Trump is cruel to immigrants.
You see what he did there. I mean, it's sad by how pathetic it is. Trying to equate the two situations. But the truth of the matter is somebody like David French would have Christians in this country suffering under a Kamala Harris presidency and honestly be terrorized by these illegals that we want deported as a matter of law. The fact that Jesus came to this earth while Israel was under Roman occupation doesn't mean anything in this situation. We're the United States of America. We have immigration laws. We've been sold out by our own politicians who have run a proxy war against the people, poisoned us with drugs, allowed, literally you're talking about barbarians, allowed third world barbarian hordes to invade our country and kill our women and our children. And yeah, we're cheering it on when somebody is trying to put a stop to that suffering. And if David French had his way, he would have American Christians suffer and be completely wiped out violently. And that is not loving your neighbor. That is hating your neighbor, David French. You actually support policies under the guise of Christian virtue that actually hate our neighbor. And, I mean, the term Pharisee comes to mind very much so in this situation. Let's see here. We're about out of time, and so I wanted to make. Oh no! I definitely want to announce this. This is huge news. We have to give Trump a ton of credit here, and I hope he succeeds. We interviewed Tina Peters almost very close to when she was sentenced. Donald Trump putting this on Truth Social yesterday. Radical left Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser ignores illegals committing violent crimes like rape and murder in his state and instead jailed Tina Peters, a 69-year-old Gold Star mother who worked to expose and document Democrat election fraud. Tina is an innocent political prisoner being horribly and unjustly punished in the form of cruel and unusual punishment. This is a communist persecution by the radical left Democrats to cover up their election crimes and misdeeds in 2020. The same Democrat Party that flies to El Salvador to try to free MS-13 terrorists, an MS-13 terrorist, is cruelly imprisoning, perhaps for life, a grandmother whose brave and heroic son gave his life for America. Colorado must end this unjust incarceration of an innocent American. I am hereby directing the Department of Justice to take all necessary action to help secure the release of this hostage being held in Colorado prison by the Democrats for political reasons. Free Tina Peters now. Continue to pray for Tina Peters as well. I understand she's not in great health in these conditions. She caught Colorado dead to rights. She caught election theft dead to rights, and they put her in jail for it. So continue to keep her in your prayers because she definitely needs them. And let's hope that the Justice Department is going to apply whatever pressure they can on Colorado to get her to be released, because that's what we need. It's now time for my favorite segment of the show.
And let us confess our faith today in the words of the Sparkle Creed. I believe in the non-binary God.
And now it's time for I'm Already Against Women Clergy. You don't have to convince me.
All right, so for this edition of I'm Already Against Women Clergy, you don't have to convince me. It comes courtesy of Protestia. Protestia writes, checkmate Christians. The Reverend Elizabeth Riley, an Episcopalian priestess, just destroyed your beliefs with this genius logic and reasoning. What did she say?
Christians, if you are okay with God being three people in one,
okay,
but you're not okay with people being transgender,
No, I'm not.
I really think you need to examine those two things together.
Oh!
Christians, if you...
So if you believe in a Trinitarian God and you have a problem with people being trans, you're contradicting yourself, she says. I mean, folks, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. I had another longer clip pulled from another priestess who was talking about the Moses being pulled from the reeds of the Nile, and it was all about trans. Everything's about trans. Everything. And they take every Bible verse they can, or they take every Christian doctrine they can and try to reinterpret it through the lens that allows their lifestyles to continue without having to give up sin, without having to recognize it as sin, without having to give it up and repent and actually turn to Jesus Christ. And it's just rampant. Everything is seen through the lens of sex. Everything is seen through the lens of sexuality. Like that's the most important function that you have as a human being created in the image of God, is who you want to sleep with. And so everything is viewed through that lens, and it's disgusting and it's sick. And it's not just women clergy that do it, but it certainly is one of the reasons why we have this segment.
This has been I'm Already Against Women Clergy. You don't have to convince me.
All right, that is all the time that we have. Before we go, I want to remind everybody to go to curable.com. That's KURIBL.com, KURIBL.com, and use promo code Paul20 when you get your CBD. CBD is great for fighting inflammation, both externally on your body and internally. You can use their tinctures that you drop under your tongue to fight inflammation internally, and then you can use things like their muscle cream to fight it externally. They also have great CBD gummies with melatonin. They also have stuff for your pets to help with their joints, because if CBD works for you, it can also work for dogs. So if you already know the amazing power of CBD, I want you to go to curable.com. If you don't know about it yet, I still want you to curable.com, and I want you to do some research about how things like CBD can help you recover and fight pain, fight chronic pain, without having to pop ibuprofen all the time. Think about that. Long-term study, so ibuprofen, not great for you long-term, right? Or Tylenol or Aleve or some of the other ones, right? It's curable.com. Use promo code Paul20. That's curable.com. Use promo code Paul20. And unless I'm providentially hindered, I'm going to see you guys back here tomorrow. I'll be wishing you a happy Wednesday. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Thursday. God bless everybody out there. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you tomorrow.
The very foundation of the Christian faith is based